Welcome, everybody, to the NFL Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm your host for the NFL Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host. First up, from the FF Face-Off, which you can find on thegruelingtruth.com right now on the front page, Anthony Cervino. How you doing, Anthony?
What's going on, guys?
Not much. That's why we're here. There's not much going on. Sam Teets, our NFL writer. Sam, do you have anything more to add than what's going on?
Not much. I'm just glad to be here, Mike.
All right. Former Carolina Panthers tight end Greg Olsen has agreed to terms on a deal with the Seattle Seahawks, the team announced on Tuesday. Terms weren't released, but a source at ESPN says the deal is for 1 year, worth $7 million with $5.5 million in guaranteed. And I think there's no doubt, Anthony, that tight end was an area in need for the Seahawks, with Will Dissly coming up with a ruptured Achilles. They've got veteran tight end Ed Dixon, but he's a candidate to be released. So I think this is a position of need. My only question is, can Greg Olsen stay healthy?
I don't hate the Greg Olsen addition for the Seattle Seahawks. I think it's a move that makes sense for both sides. Because Seattle, they do like to feature the tight end, a reliable tight end, especially in the red zone. We saw that with Jimmy Graham before he left, and they've tried filling his shoes with a couple of different guys. They brought in Ed Dixon. They brought in Hollister. Will Dissly has been the most effective, but in each of the past 2 seasons, he's suffered season-ending injuries. What I think Greg Olsen brings a little bit more stability to position. And, yeah, Olsen has dealt with injuries of his own, but he was relatively healthy this past season. And his lack of production, I would put more on the quarterback play than anything else in Carolina. And even if he's in a reduced role, splitting time with Will Dissly, I think it's a good fit for Seattle. And for Olsen, I mean, Seattle's going to be a contender anytime Russell Wilson's on the field and healthy, and Russell Wilson's a player who doesn't get hurt. I mean, his other option was what? Washington. Buffalo is a little bit further away than Seattle. So, yeah, I like the move for everybody.
Buffalo's further away than Seattle? What do you mean by that?
From a championship?
I don't know.
I mean, the difference maker is Russ.
Yeah, the difference maker is Russ. I think Buffalo may have better talent and a better coach.
Maybe better talent on defense. I don't know about offensively.
Well, how
at
about
least
this,
at the skill positions.
But offensive line, they are better, and skill positions what they need. I'm not going to argue with this one with you just because Russell Wilson's in Seattle, but I will also say that if you look at the AFC East, it looks more possible that Buffalo is going to jump up and win that division next year than it does that Seattle can overtake the 49ers.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
I can agree with that. Depending on what New England does at quarterback and everywhere else. But Seattle was right on par with San Francisco. And then that last month, they lost both of their running backs in Seattle. Both Penny and Chris Carson both were lost for the season, and that was pretty much a wrap. Yeah. If those two backs were healthy, they're winning one of those games against. I think they won the first one. I think they win the second one.
They won in San Francisco, and then they lost the close game.
They're not that far away from San Francisco.
I think they are. I mean, I think San Francisco's a team with how deep they are is just going to continue to get better. Plus, remember this. You talk about injuries to running backs. San Francisco had a lot more injuries this year than Seattle did.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but I do think this is a great move. I think Greg Olsen is a hell of a tight end. And, Sam, what's your opinion? But I think this is definitely worth the shot here if I'm Seattle.
Oh, I think this was a great decision by Seattle. Because you look at his production, Greg Olsen actually produced about the same exact numbers as Will Dissly did on his per-game averages last year. So you're bringing in a guy who can still play almost like a starting caliber role to a team that already has Will Disley, who's coming off of injury, and a guy in Jacob Hollister who outperformed what was expected of him last year. So you're bringing in some guys. Now suddenly Russell Wilson has another threat in the arsenal, which is what they really needed. I thought Seattle might even go as far as the draft tight end this year because I thought they needed a little more depth at that position. But now you bring Greg Olsen. That fixes that problem. And as far as Seattle and San Francisco, I do think San Francisco is far ahead of Seattle. But I think what changes it a little bit is that little bit of interdivision competition in there. Because I think Seattle's a team that can always compete close with San Francisco, even though there's a talent disparity.
Yeah, Arizona competed close with them twice, but they're nowhere near them.
Yeah.
And we see that all the time because even the Cleveland Browns give teams in the AFC North a game every once in a while. My other thing is, did you guys happen to see the game Greg Olsen called for the XFL this weekend?
I saw the first week. I saw week one when he called. He was stuttering a little bit. He was a little bit off in the first week. I don't know which one he called the second week.
I thought he was extremely good the second week, Anthony. Did you get a chance to see him?
I actually did watch the XFL over the weekend, but I did not know Greg Olsen was calling the game. But I actually did watch the XFL, and I don't want to say impressed because there are some holes, especially
Saturday was terrible. Sunday was much better.
But I mean, I think it'll last definitely longer than the AAF, definitely longer than XFL 1.0, 20 years ago. Man. But I mean, if we're going to talk any XFL, I was talking to Sam about this off air. I think if they really want to make a legitimate splash, and it's going to be hard to do when you don't have owners and you're not paying these guys money. I mean, there's guys like Des Bryant, C.J. Anderson. There's a lot of names who did not play in the NFL last year who can immediately go to the XFL and make it a hell of a lot more legitimate. They're just not going to go play for peanuts.
Well, $55,000 is not peanuts. I'd love to make $55,000 to play football for 3 months.
I mean, it's peanuts when Dez was making $10 million a year, CJ was making $5 million a year, and you know what backup quarterbacks make in the league.
Yeah. Well, I would think this: the XFL, if they really want to make this legit, they need to upgrade quarterback for about half their teams, and I would say that you go to the CFL because the CFL has 5 or 6 starting quarterbacks that could play and start in the NFL right now. If they could get them, then they would have the quarterbacks they need to make this legit. I think in the end, the XFL will kill itself because I think that they will try to expand too quickly, and I think that is what has destroyed every league from the USFL to the Arena Football League. All these leagues try to expand like right away. I would say they will last if they do not try to expand anywhere next year.
That's a fair take.
Because
they got to be patient with this.
I mean, my perfect example is this. I coached at a league called the CIFL, the Continental Indoor Football League, and the league had 6 really good teams. But the problem was there was 3 or 4 teams that were allowed into the league from big cities like Detroit that would constantly fail. And the problem was you would end up, our team, we played in a legit arena. We had a former NFL quarterback. We start off the year drawing really well. But by the time you get halfway into the season, the team in Detroit folds, and then all of a sudden they're bringing a semi-pro team in for us to batter by 100 points, and you lose your crowd that way. And plus, I just think it needs to stay small, stay at 8 teams, maybe 2 or 3 years from now, expand to 10. But the other concern is the quarterback position, which I don't think there's enough quality quarterbacks to go around because, hell, there's not enough quality quarterbacks in the NFL to go around. And what people forget is guys like Cardell Jones and P.J. Walker and Jordan Ta'amu, who look really good right now, are probably going to be on NFL rosters next year.
But that's when you get in situations where you have guys like Matt McGloin come in playing as your quarterback spot, and suddenly you degrade the game that way, you degrade your product. So you can't be expanding and opening these new job opportunities when you've got guys who your best players are leaving, presumably for the NFL, and you're not bringing in guys who step in to fill their shoes. So you have to make sure that you don't oversaturate the market with your programming. So otherwise, you're just going to degrade yourself.
Yeah, and I think guys like Walker and Jones are going to be in the NFL. Cardell Jones has impressed me. I think the dude is a lot better than what he was, and he came out of college probably 2 years before he should have. So this is kind of like his junior year right now because he only played 11 games. Since we're talking quarterbacks, the New Orleans Saints have added Drew Brees for another year. He will be 41 in January, was scheduled to become an unrestricted free agent, had been making it clear that he had no interest in leaving for the open market, so his only choice was staying in New Orleans or retiring. He decided to stay. It's got to be a good mood for him because he's going to make a lot of money. Is this a good thing for the Saints, Sam?
Perhaps right now it might be, but if you look in terms of their future beyond this point, you're basically saying, I think it sounds crazy to me, but I think this is what the Saints honestly believe. They believe that they can get Taysom Hill to be a starter down the line for them. Now, that sounds insane to me. Because Taysom Hill's been 11 pass attempts his entire career, something like that. But they seem committed to the idea of him playing down the line for them and Brees being their guy right now. But I don't know if that's a smart play. Because honestly, I don't trust Taysom Hill to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't trust him to really be a backup quarterback in the NFL. And as for Brees, I don't know if Brees can play a full season and still bring his still be playing at an elite level when it comes to the playoffs.
Anthony?
I think Drew Brees gives the Saints the best chance to win this season. But if I was the Saints, and this has been my argument, are you willing to risk losing Teddy Bridgewater, who works in your system and in that offense? Some people think that the Saints could potentially retain all three quarterbacks again, not if Teddy Bridgewater is trying to make $30 million a year. And if you're Teddy Bridgewater and you look at Drew Brees, his pass attempts, he's throwing about 100 fewer pass attempts in each of the past 3 seasons than he has the seasons before, going deep into the 600s, now well below that. They're trying to protect his longevity. You can make the case that Drew Brees is playing better than Tom Brady. Who's to say that this is going to be Drew Brees' final year? And if you're Teddy Bridgewater and you're going to re-sign with the Saints thinking 2021 is going to be your year and Drew comes back, you're missing potentially your first and last payday, which is going to be this time in free agency.
Well, and how about this? Taysom Hill will be a restricted free agent, which means the Saints can match any offer before he signs with another team. And depending on the size of New Orleans' qualifying offer to Hill, teams would have to give up either a first or second round draft pick if, they can't match the offer. And the first round tender would likely cost $4.5 to $5 million for Hill. Bridgewater is going to cost a lot more than that. So I think Bridgewater is the odd man out here. I don't think there's any doubt of that. And I also think, since this is happening this way, that there's no doubt that I think Sean Payton plans, Sam, on Taysom Hill being the quarterback when Drew's gone.
Oh, absolutely. I think there were reports out there that he was intrigued by the idea of Taysom Hill being the full-time starting quarterback. So I think he definitely sees Hill being the guy of the future. Now, obviously, as I said, I don't agree with that assessment. I don't think that's a smart move at all, based on everything Taysom Hill's done up to this point. But if Sean Payton thinks that's how it's going to be, then Sean Payton's going to make that move. And I don't see the Saints having long-term success from that decision.
All right. I'm not going to say it's a bad move because I haven't seen Taysom Hill enough to play quarterback to know whether it is or not. I just know either way it's a big drop-off from Drew Brees. And I'm not sold that Teddy Bridgewater is going to be a superstar in the NFL. I think he's kind of like an Andy Dalton guy who, if you put enough people around him, can be successful. But let's talk some Dallas Cowboys, because I love talking Dallas Cowboys. The team that didn't make the playoffs, the Eagles won the division, and they also lost to the New York Jets. Jason Witten wants to play another NFL season, but acknowledged it might have to be with a franchise other than the Dallas Cowboys. Anthony?
I'm not shocked here. There were rumors earlier in the offseason, once Jason Garrett went to the New York Giants, that It wouldn't surprise anybody if Jason Witten followed him. So this report isn't a shock. Dallas has Blake Jarwin, who Dak and some coaches believe is one of the most talented and versatile players on that roster. And I don't think you can keep him off the field much longer. So I think it's almost a lock that Jason Witten's going to be with another team. And if you're a Cowboys fan, you don't want to see it, but that's the NFL. That's the game.
Yeah, but wouldn't that make sense? I mean, he's a little older. He wants to win a Super Bowl, and that's not going to happen in Dallas anytime soon. Sam?
Yeah, Dallas, based on everything going on, it's going to be a while before they figure things out, if they figure things out ever. My question is, Witten, is what team will sign you? Because there are a lot of teams that could use Witten because he did go for 529 receiving yards last year, which is pretty decent, all things considered. But it really comes down to is what team wants to sign a 38-year-old or almost 38-year-old. I don't know if you get a team that's contending that will want to sign Jason Witten.
Yeah. And, I mean, what do you think, Anthony? Is there any contending teams that would want to?
Contending. I mean, I feel like this is the answer for any tight end conversation. It's New England. Would New England do it? I mean, Jason Witten is an upgrade of anything that they have on that roster at tight end right now. Even at 38 years old, he is better than every tight end on that roster right now.
Yeah, but that's also because that roster's terrible right now at tight end.
Right, but there's a contending team, and until we see otherwise, you're going to assume New England is a contender. So they're the fit. I mean, you can make the case maybe for Buffalo, too, because they're in the tight end business. They have Dawson Knox. He still needs to develop a little bit.
All right. Joe Burrow, Colin Cowherd keeps saying that he should go. All these talking heads in the media keep saying he should go. Sam, is this just a bunch of smoke from a bunch of guys that don't know anything?
I really think it is. I mean, it's just like, this is what happens, though, every time before a draft process. Whenever we see a really hyped-up prospect who's believed to be like the next it guy, there's always so much smoke and mirrors coming out. And a lot of times, not even the teams. The teams just rely on people in the media to go and spread stuff around.
Yeah, and how about this, Anthony? Anytime we've ever seen this done, it was the player that initiated this. It wasn't a rumor that initiated this. With John Elway, he just said, I'm not going to Baltimore. And he said it immediately. And, you know, for weeks before the draft, Eli Manning's dad, Archie, was telling everybody, you know, we're not going to San Diego. So, I mean, I think this is somebody like Colin Cowherd who shouldn't even be allowed to be on TV talking about professional football, just trying to get ratings.
Is it really Colin making the rumors up? Because I like Colin a lot. I listen to his show every day.
Why? He knows nothing.
It's other people. It's Carson Palmer.
Carson Palmer said it, but you know what? It's everybody.
It is Solomon Wilcox.
It's
and
everybody.
Colin is just facilitating it. What Colin is saying is that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to force Joe Burrow's hand because he could potentially save that franchise.
Joe Burrow has really nothing to say about this. I think why last year when Kyler Murray was the first pick, and Arizona has been a horrid franchise, much worse than Cincinnati. Why did we not hear Colin Cowherd and all these idiots saying this stuff then?
Because I think Joe Burrow is special. I think Joe Burrow is on a different level than a couple of guys we've seen in the last couple of years.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that's what's going on here. I mean,
Colin had major issues with Kyler Murray's size.
Yeah.
And his demeanor to the media.
Hey, and this is the thing. You know what? Colin Cowherd don't know two shits about what it takes to play quarterback. And Colin Cowherd was proven completely wrong by the way Kyler Murray played this year and the way he conducted himself on the field. Colin Cowherd should never be allowed to speak about football, and I don't know why anybody would listen to a man that, let's face it, when you look at him, he looks like a tennis player or a soccer player. I bet you he probably never been in a fist fight in his life. I mean, basically, he's just a weak-kneed little girl that goes out and spews crap so people will listen to him. He's just like Stephen A. Smith, who is nothing, knows nothing. I mean, why would anybody listen to Colin Cowherd when it comes to looking at quarterbacks? And my point is this. I believe the NFL is what's behind doing this. I think the NFL is trying to stir up the controversy so Burrow ends up forcing a trade from Cincinnati because they don't want the Bengals to be successful.
In an attempt to move the franchise?
No, just an attempt to make sure that the Bengals stay in their place, which is in the middle of the pack. Because, let's face it, if they trade the pick, who are the teams that would want to trade for him? You got teams like Detroit, they'd want to trade for him. I mean, Miami, they'd want to trade for him. So, I mean, where could he go that would be a better situation in Cincinnati? In the last 11 years, Anthony, how many teams in the AFC have made the playoffs more than the Bengals?
I don't know.
Patriots, Chiefs, Ravens. That's it. Fourth place is a tie between the Bengals, Colts, and Steelers. That's it. So how can we sit here and say, well, why would he want to go there? You know, Andy Dalton went there and made the playoffs 6 times in 11 years. Colin Cowherd also thinks Andy Dalton's a bum. I've heard him say it. You know, bums don't make it to the playoffs for the first 5 seasons.
I like Burrow to Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati has the pieces in place for Joe Burrow to succeed. I think they have the pieces in place for Andy Dalton to succeed if they get that offensive line together.
Yeah, so my question is, unless Colin Cowherd knows a lot more about football than you do, what makes you think that he's right on this? I mean, what makes you think he would even say this? He is told to say this. The NFL owns this. It's like Mike Florio at NBC. If you've ever noticed, he does nothing but tear apart the XFL. And when they asked him about the XFL before the first week, he said, well, I don't really have an investment in it, so I'm not going to go out of my way to like it. So I'm just saying that this media, the narrative is controlled by ESPN and Disney, which is controlled by the NFL when it comes to a multi-billion-dollar contract. I mean, there's a lot worse places to go and play in the NFL than Cincinnati. And I've railed against Mike Brown for a long time, but there's a lot worse places to go.
Could end up in Cleveland.
When was the last time Cleveland made the playoffs?
Anthony,
Sam, were you even born the last time the Browns made the playoffs?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I honestly don't know. Maybe if I was really little, I don't think I was. I had to be really little. I'm pretty sure.
It was 2003.
Yeah, I was like 4.
4 in 2003.
I was a freshman in college.
I was 93 years old. No, let's see. I would have been 30. I was 35. And I was jaded as a Bengals fan by then. And I know that I say Mike Brown's a moron, but most of these owners are idiots. What's he going to do? Is he going to go to Washington? I mean, when you look at the places that desperately need quarterbacks, what place is better in Cincinnati? If they re-sign A.J. Green, you've got one of the best wide receivers in football. You've got one of the best running backs in football. I mean, there are the tools there to turn that around quickly. Where are the tools to turn it? I mean, and you talk about Miami, they got all those sexy draft picks. You know, the team like that last year was Cleveland. How'd that turn out? How did it turn out in Miami 5 or 6 years ago when they signed everybody?
And Cleveland's done that a couple of times where they've had all the draft picks. Remember that year they took, like, Justin Gilbert was the guy that picked high. They picked Johnny Manziel high. I think that was the same draft. So just because you have draft picks doesn't mean you're actually going to do anything with them. A lot of times you don't. So I do think the Bengals have players. The Bengals have guys who can make an impact right now. So if you're looking at teams that would need a guy like Joe Burrow, I don't think Miami's better. I don't think Cleveland's better. I don't think a team like Arizona, who obviously just took Kyler Murray, but I don't think that's better. I don't think Washington's better. I don't think Detroit's better either. I think Cincinnati's probably the best out of that group.
I mean, I would say, what about a team like Carolina or the Chargers? But outside of that, there's not much.
Yeah, but there's what the Carolina and the Chargers. How many times have the Chargers and the Panthers made the playoffs in the last 11 years? And Carolina just lost their best defensive player. I mean, they've got Christian McCaffrey. The wide receivers are not great there. And you go to L.A. with the Chargers, their O-line's always hurt. They're always supposed to be the next big thing. But, I mean, outside of the Chargers, out of all those teams, I don't see where there's a better deal out of the 9 or 10 teams we just named. Miami's not a better place to be. Is Jacksonville a better place to be?
No.
No, because whoever goes there fails. It's a cesspool. You know? I don't think the Chicago Bears are a better place to be, because outside of that magical 1985 season, nothing's happened there since the 1930s, maybe the 40s. So I think everybody reads in that Mike Brown's such a bad owner, but there's a lot of guys in this league that are bad owners. I mean, you still got Spanos with the Chargers. So if you're just going to go on ownership alone and bad owners, he'd be in there. You know, maybe the Raiders with Vegas because, you know, they could jazz it up there. But I don't think the Raiders, team-wise, are any better than the Bengals. There's no Joe. I mean, Josh Jacobs is good, but I don't think he's better than Joe Mixon, Anthony. And I know they don't have an A.J. Green there.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not really arguing the landing spot for Joe Burrow.
Yeah, so my argument is this. Why is this even being brought up?
It drives
because of former players. Because of the former players of the Cincinnati Bengals.
So you don't think the former players may have been told to say that? I think Carson probably wouldn't. But you know what? T.J. Houshmandzadeh is an asshat anyways. Carson Palmer was a guy that changed things here by raising hell and getting out of here, because after that happened, Marvin got a little bit more control and you ended up with 5 straight playoffs. But right. I mean, still, just because a player says something, don't mean you run with it and beat people over the head with it for weeks, 5 times a day.
No, but you know, but this is the business we're in. We're reactionists and we're opinionists.
Yeah.
So of course we're going to jump all over what these former players say.
But the thing I don't understand is this: if I'm going to say somebody should not go somewhere, I'm going to then, since I am looking ahead, going to give an opinion of what would work and what would be a better deal for Joe Burrow. I haven't heard anybody give that yet, including Colin Cowherd.
That's fair. You're right on that. I haven't heard that either.
And that's my biggest problem with him. And that's my biggest problem with all of them, because everybody says they should have to trade the pick. Were you going to trade him to Bill Belichick in New England? For what? I mean, what can they give you unless they just give you your entire draft? And then is New England a better spot? Sure, you got Bill Belichick, but there's nothing around him. Tom Brady couldn't get out of the first round of the playoffs with those guys. So I just question the motive here when I look at all this. And I think the motives are not what they should be.
To your point on New England, though, right? Because all the reports with Brady, he wants all this money. And if they give Brady what he wants so he can stay, it's going to be harder to build around him. If you give up your draft to get Joe Burrow and now he's on the rookie deal for the next 5 years, then you can spend that money to bring in some weapons, and it's a different story. So I get the New England narrative. But these other teams, Detroit.
Yeah.
I mean, when was the last time? I mean, Matthew Stafford's a pretty good quarterback, and he hasn't won anything.
Yeah, and that's the point. I don't even know
if he's won a division.
I don't think he has. He had the 1 year, I think, if he doesn't get the finger or hand injury, I think they would have won the division, but they ended up being the wild card going to Seattle because of the injury, and he didn't perform as well after that. So, yeah, outside of places like New England, I don't think the Chiefs need a quarterback. The 49ers, I mean, maybe the 49ers could trade up for him, but I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, because Garoppolo in his first full year, no matter how he played in that fourth quarter, did take them to the Super Bowl. So, Any other NFL news you can think of, Anthony?
Not. I mean, Adrian Peterson is going to play again for the Washington Redskins. So.
Yeah, but he's playing for the Redskins. So does anybody care?
Well, you asked if there's any other news.
I know. I'm just
retaining him.
I'm trying to be like Colin Cowherd, so you'll like me more. Huh?
Joe Flacco.
What about him? Is he still playing football?
Joe Flacco plans to play, but not at the risk of his long-term health, or whatever that means.
So not for the Denver Broncos, then, is what he's trying to say.
Yeah, he needed a team with an offensive line. But
I don't think there's not a starting job for Joe Flacco.
I think there is. And I think it's obvious where he would fit in perfectly.
Where?
The New York Guardians.
Well, okay.
Or the Tampa Bay Vipers. They could use a quarterback also. I think it's something he ought to look at. I mean, what the hell? It'll make the league better. All right, guys. We got anything else to talk about? Because I think we actually went farther than I thought today. So tomorrow, I think that we come on, we'll talk a little NFL news, and then we'll do the worst draft trades in NFL history. And then on Friday at 1 o'clock Eastern, live on thegruelingtruth.com, me, Anthony, and Sam will do our first ever NFL mock draft. How's that sound to you guys?
Sounds perfect.
Great.
Okay, because I got to pee really bad, too, so I couldn't start a whole nother topic either.
Okay.
All right, Anthony, tell everybody where they can find the AFF Face-Off.
You can follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru, and you can follow the show at the FF Face-Off, and we can be found at all the top social media and podcast platforms.
All right, Sam, where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Sam_Teets33 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm posting articles there constantly, so feel free to go check those out.
All right, guys, you can follow me at Grueling Truth on Twitter. You can hear us wherever you find podcasts, including iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for now, for Anthony Cervino, Sam Teets, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.